buried in a forgotten archive, mislabeled, overlooked for decades. A fragment of papyrus, barely larger than your hand, sat in a dusty inventory in Cairo, waiting. No one knew what it was. No one knew what it contained. But inside those ancient fibers, pressed flat by 2,000 years of silence, were words that had not been read by human eyes since the fall of the Roman Empire. Words written by a man who, centuries before modern science, tried to explain how the universe itself was built. And what those words say is rewriting everything we thought we knew about the birth of Western philosophy. If you're the kind of person who believes the past still has secrets left to give, this channel is for you. Hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. We uncover the stories that history almost lost forever. The year is recent. The place is Liège, Belgium, a quiet university city of cobblestone streets and medieval architecture, far removed from the sun-bleached deserts of Egypt. But it is here inside the University of Liège that a papyrologist named Nathan Carlig is doing what he does every day, reading the unreadable. Papyrology is one of the most painstaking disciplines in all of academia. It demands patience measured not in hours, but in years. You study fragments, pieces of ancient writing material made from the pith of the papyrus plant. They're often torn, burned, faded, or simply misidentified. Most fragments yield nothing extraordinary. Most are administrative records, letters, receipts. The work is meticulous, invisible to the world outside. But then, occasionally, something stops you cold. Carlig was examining an artifact cataloged simply as P. Fouad INV 218. It had been sitting in the archives of the French Institute of Oriental Archaeology in Cairo, untouched, unexamined in any meaningful depth, sleeping among thousands of other fragments. It had been there long enough that no one remembered why it mattered. It had a label, it had a number, and that was all, until Carlig looked closer. The fragment is small, fragile. The papyrus is brown and brittle, its edges uneven where time has eaten away at it. The writing upon it is in ancient Greek, a flowing, formal hand, the kind used for literary texts rather than everyday correspondence. And as Carlig began to read, something extraordinary happened. He recognized the style, the meter, the philosophy embedded in the verse. This was not a letter, not a tax record, not a personal note dashed off 2 millennia ago by someone long forgotten. This was poetry, philosophical poetry. 30 previously unknown verses, 30 lines that had never, in the entire history of modern scholarship, been read by anyone alive. They were written by Empedocles of Agrigentum. Let that sink in for a moment. Empedocles, one of the towering figures of pre-Socratic Greek philosophy, a man who lived in the 5th century BC on the island of Sicily, and who spent his life trying to answer the most fundamental question a human being can ask. What is the world made of? Until this discovery, everything we knew about Empedocles came secondhand. He left no complete manuscripts. His work survived only in fragments, scattered quotations preserved by later authors. Plato referenced him. Aristotle debated him. Plutarch quoted him. But we never had his actual words in anything approaching an original document. Until now, these 30 lines are part of a larger work called Physica, a poem in which Empedocles laid out his vision of the physical universe. And in these newly discovered verses, he writes about something startling: particle effluvia and sensory perception, specifically vision, how we see, how the world enters the mind through the eye. Here is where it gets deeply strange. Empedocles lived in an age when Greek philosophy was still young. He predated Plato. He predated Aristotle's systematic science. He was, in many ways, a figure who stood at the very threshold of rational thought, straddling the world of mythology and the emerging world of reasoned inquiry. His most famous theory was the 4 roots: fire, water, earth, and air. These were the building blocks of all existence, combined and separated by 2 cosmic forces: love and strife. It was poetic. It was intuitive. But was it scientific? For centuries, historians of philosophy have placed Empedocles firmly in one camp and another group, the Atomists, in a separate, more advanced intellectual lineage. The Atomists, thinkers like Leucippus and Democritus, propose something remarkably modern, that the universe is composed of fundamental, indivisible particles, atoms, too small to be seen, indestructible, and eternal. It sounds almost like quantum physics articulated in the 5th century BC. Empedocles was never counted among them. He was considered a precursor, yes, but not a direct ancestor of atomic theory. But these 30 new lines are forcing scholars to ask a question they never expected to ask. What if they had it wrong? Carlig and his colleagues at the University of Liège have now published their analysis, and the conclusions are striking. These newly discovered verses deal with effluvia, the idea that objects emit streams of tiny particles that travel outward and interact with the senses. In this case, Empedocles is writing specifically about sight, how particles flow from objects into the eye, producing visual experience. This is not merely poetic metaphor. This is a mechanistic account of perception, a physical explanation, couched in verse, of how matter interacts with the body to produce experience. The implications are significant enough that the researchers have proposed something bold, that Empedocles may need to be repositioned in the history of philosophy, not merely as a precursor to the Atomists, but potentially as a direct intellectual ancestor, a thinker who is reaching, in his own way, toward the same fundamental insight, that the world is made of particles too small to see, moving through space, creating the world we experience. This does not mean the debate is settled. Other scholars will argue, reasonably, that Empedocles still operated within a fundamentally different conceptual framework than the true Atomists. His 4 roots are not atoms. His love and strife are not physical forces in the modern sense. The language of his philosophy is still poetic and cosmic in ways that distinguish it from the colder logic of Leucippus and Democritus. But the newly discovered lines introduce nuance that was simply not there before. They show a thinker in motion, exploring, testing, pushing the boundaries of his own system. And in that motion, he is reaching toward ideas that would not fully crystallize for another generation. Consider what this moment represents. A fragment of papyrus, sitting mislabeled in a Cairo archive, contained knowledge that rewrites, even slightly, the intellectual genealogy of Western civilization. The story of how we came to think about atoms, about matter, about perception and reality. That story has a new chapter, and it raises a question that should unsettle every historian of ideas. How many other fragments are out there? How many archives, in Cairo, in Rome, in Oxford, in Istanbul, contain documents that have been cataloged, boxed, and forgotten? How many ideas are waiting in the dust, waiting for the right set of eyes to recognize them? The ancient world produced an ocean of writing. What survived to reach us is a small, battered, storm-tossed fleet. We have Plato. We have Aristotle. We have Homer and Sophocles and Thucydides. But we have lost vast quantities of ancient thought, philosophy, science, literature, history, to fire, flood, neglect, and time. Fuad IMB 218 is a reminder that the ocean has not entirely receded, that somewhere beneath the surface, fragments still drift, and that every now and then, a careful scholar in a quiet office in Belgium reaches into that archive and pulls one back into the light. Empedocles of Agrigentum died approximately 2,430 years ago. Ancient accounts suggest he was a vivid personality, charismatic, confident, a man who reportedly claimed divine status and dressed accordingly. He walked the towns of Sicily, offering wisdom, healing, and prophecy. He wrote in verse because he believed that the deepest truths required more than prose, that the structure of language itself should mirror the structure of the cosmos. And somewhere in the 5th century BC, he sat down and wrote 30 lines about how light and particles and sensation weave together to create the act of seeing. Those lines passed into the hands of a scribe. were copied onto papyrus, were carried, somehow, across centuries and migrations and empires to Egypt, were archived, were mislabeled, were forgotten, and then, in a quiet office in Liège, Belgium, a papyrologist read them for the first time in 2,000 years. The words of Empedocles had been waiting, patient as stone, quiet as dust, and they still had something to say. So here's the question I want to leave you with, and I genuinely want to hear your answer in the comments. If one mislabeled papyrus fragment can rewrite the history of philosophy, what else might be hiding in the world's archives right now? What other ideas, discoveries, or lost voices are sitting in a box somewhere, waiting for someone to finally look? Tell me your theory below. I read every comment. And if this kind of story moves you, if you believe the past still has more to reveal, subscribe and turn on notifications, because we are just getting started.